So we like to record them and then we'll post them on our YouTube page. So they are available for you later to review. So because that's the case, that this is available for review and we now have a wonderful log of monthly stargazing events, I think we can pick up the pace a little bit, right? Had a discussion with a couple of you after last month's who were like, you know, I came to the first couple of months and I heard a lot of the same things, and that's really true. So I think we're ready, and this is robust enough that we can start kind of leveling up a little bit, but I don't want to miss out on the introductory material. So we'll go through that first. Well, welcome everybody. I'm very happy to be here with you on this very bright day. Back in February, it was dark already when we started this. It was dark by 5:30, but now of course we have to wait another 4 hours for the sun to go down so we can do stargazing. My name is Sammy Castonguay. I'm with Friends of the Owyhee. Here's one of my favorite patch to flash. We are a conservation organization focused on conservation advocacy, which happens through education and connection with the landscape. We do stewardship events and then also lead outdoor recreation and encourage outdoor recreation in a very leave no trace type of perspective. And boy, over here at Friends of the Owyhee, we just love it all. Being outside in the fresh air, under the dark night skies that are so very, very important. It's just an amazing natural resource that we have in this dark corner of the state. I also teach here at Treasure Valley Community College. That's where I'm joining you from. Slightly different venue this time with my blank whiteboard in the back, but I did bring the celestial sphere. And here at Treasure Valley Community College, I teach astronomy in the winter time. That happens to be one of the best times to go stargazing is in the winter because it gets dark so early, but it's cold. Okay, so what we're in store for, as I said, I'll try to go through the introductory material a little more quickly today, but some gear for stargazing, setting your awareness, and the processes that we like to repeatedly go through, you know, kind of like when you get in your car. You know, there's the processes. You have to buckle the seatbelt, you got to turn the ignition, you got to put it in gear. And all of those processes, well, for a car, it's required. But for stargazing or for any of these naturalist type of things, setting a process for yourself to learn and then repeat that is very crucial. Then I'd like to discuss just the importance of that resource, the natural night skies. I have a few maps to show you. And I think that all of you, if you're coming to a stargazing presentation, you're probably well aware of how just beautiful the night sky is and wonderful to preserve. And then we'll head over to do some review from the last couple of months. So here it says the Zodiacal Constellations, but we will cover material from February and some of the Zodiacal Constellations from last month. Okay, and then I'll give you a lot of new stuff to chew on, a lot of fun new stuff to chew on, so you're never bored. Okay, so I would highly suggest if you are stargazing that you be prepared. So now we're heading into the summer months, or we're now in kind of spring, late spring. So this isn't as important, but be prepared for cold weather. You know, when it's cloudy out right now, we might not be able to go stargazing in the first place. But if you're headed outside far away from home, just be prepared. So that always means bring plenty of water and maybe some snacks. If you're going out stargazing at night, to stay warm. So here's a whole lot of clothing that you could wear. And I like to always suggest to bring a hot drink. Okay, I don't care what you put in that drink, but just have something kind of warm, you know, to sit out and enjoy and sipping your warm liquid. And then probably by the time that you've finished your warm liquid, your eyes will have adjusted really well to the night sky. and you'll be able to do a really good stargazing session. Okay, so because we want this to be enjoyable and informative and fun, right? Nobody wants stargazing to be no fun. All right, now let's talk about that setting awareness. Part of that is setting your awareness in the space where you live, where you're going to go stargazing at, where is the field, and most important, to recognize yourself in space is to recognize the cardinal directions, right? I'm going to go like this for north because that's north to me in the room that I am in. And if you don't mind, I can't see your camera. Go ahead and make sure you're oriented in space. Go ahead and point north. And if you don't know where that is, you can use a space phone. Okay, those are pretty handy. You probably have one in your pocket. Or perhaps you have a compass, traditional magnetic compass that I still use today. And knowing where north is at when you start is really going to help the stargazing process be more efficient. So you can find something, get the shape, and kind of move on to what you're learning next. And then it's also important to note the season that you're in. You know, if you're taking notes, if you're doing this like a star log, if you're writing all of this stuff down, what you do every night that you go stargazing, what you're learning, these are good details to write down. What season were you stargazing in? And of course, that would be recorded in the date. But this is important, you know, for the constellations that we'll actually see outside. You will see a completely different set of constellations at midnight on the solstice, summer solstice, than you will on midnight on the winter solstice. It's a very different sky. In the northern hemisphere, it's flipped totally upside down. And in the southern hemisphere, it's a completely different set of constellations. So knowing your season and what you're going to go outside to look for is really important. Then noting what time the sun sets, so you can go out, you know, a little bit before sunset, see the stars start to come out, do the wish I may, wish I might, you know, the wish upon a star. And when you see all of the stars starting to pop out as the sun goes down, those are the highest magnitude brightness stars. So those are the brightest ones in the night sky. And it turns out those are the easiest to begin navigating with because they're kind of like landmarks. And once those bright ones start to pop out, you know where you're at. You know where in the sky you're at. So sunset, and then also I'd say sunrise. Knowing what time the sun rises, because morning morning stargazing is also quite a pleasure. To get up nice and early, the world is quiet, the birds are singing, you're calm because you haven't had any bad things happen to you during the day, and the stars are a different set than what you saw the night before. So maybe doing some morning stargazing sometime. Now, these days, it's like, what, 5 in the morning? So have fun with that, but it's good to stargaze early. Then also the moon phase is important to note. So right now, tonight, we're at about a half full moon, 50% full. And there's two perspectives on this. One is that light, it pollutes the sky, right? It's a big bright light that's kind of making it harder to see some of the other constellations, especially right around where the moon is at. Well, that's a little bit more pessimistic than I tend to be. I just think it's another cool, beautiful light in the sky, whether it's full or whether it's thin as a razor. It's still a very beautiful part of stargazing. And the way that I like to stargaze, which is with my naked eyes and perhaps binoculars, the moon doesn't add enough light pollution that it really affects much. Now, if you're going to use a telescope and you're trying to really use the light gathering power of the lenses to see planets, then the moon phase is going to be really important. And then lastly, this is really fun, is to use the measurements of your hands. You know, we were all given this ratio of a body that it turns out if you and I, both of us, let's do it together. If you hold your arm out at, hold your hand out at arm's distance, so nice outstretched arm, then the ratio of the length of my arm and the length of my fingers and hand is pretty repeatable between Joe or Hannah or Gina and myself. So if you outstretch your hand, a fist is about 10 degrees. Okay, and then if you kind of open it up, you know, hang loose, that's about 18 degrees. And there's a small variance here because, you know, we are smaller or bigger. Okay, but it's a ballpark and it's a really good ballpark. And then lastly, if you just use your index finger or one finger, that's about 1.5 degrees. So what this allows us to do is to literally measure the distance between two stars. Well, you know, in degrees, which is not in millimeters, it's not in inches, it's not in a unit, it's just in 360 degrees all around. So if you wanted to measure, or you wanted to mess around with that, you could use your fist to go and count it up to see if you get to 360 degrees in a circle. It's kind of fun. So those are some suggestions on setting your awareness. And now let's set that process. Once you become process oriented in stargazing, I'm not trying to suck the fun out of it or anything, but once you become process oriented, you get really efficient. You see the same constellations all the time, the same stars, you get to know them really well. And next thing you know them like the back of your hand, as they say. First figuring out where you're going to look kind of goes along with the season, figuring out what constellation sets you're going to look at. Today, we're setting our process now. We're going to look to the north. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to go back to learn constellations about what's in the northern hemisphere, the circumpolar constellations again, some new ones. And then it's incredibly important in a whole lot of places in life to bring intention to your practice, to bring intention on whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're, you know, writing, whether you're dancing wildly, right? Bringing intention to what you're doing. So the way that this fits into stargazing is make a goal before you go outside. Intentionally say, I am going to go find Draco tonight. All right. And then you go out there and you do your best with the information that you're given, with the resources that you have, and you're going to find Draco. Okay. Then being well prepared is obviously part of that. So what information do you have? What information, like this book, A Walk Through the Heavens, can you get a hold of? Resources are important for not just new learning, but kind of that refresher. If you know where to find your resources and to become prepared, you'll get really proficient. And that again goes there, that similarly goes hand in hand with look, focus, and practice. So all this stuff is great through the presentation, but if you don't go look at these things tonight, well, it's cloudy where I live tonight. Maybe in San Jose, Joe, you'll be able to see the stars. But it's being prepared for what you're going to go look at is one thing, but the practice of actually having looked at it is going to make you that much sharper. So if you've made it through some of these stargazing classes and you haven't been out to go look at the stars, I beg you, please take this information that you powerfully have now. You are a star story holder, and go outside and see those constellations and then share them with somebody else. And then practice this as often as you can, whether that's just a nightly walk that you're going down to the Red Apple or something. Just gaze up and look at the stars for a minute. It's also important to open up new inquiries, but not too many. Ooh, slow down now. It is really important to look, practice, and focus. But then, you know, you gotta have what do you mean, like a questioning inquiry mind, right? To what is that over there? Okay, and once you have this practice of, I know what that is, I don't know what that is, but the unknown is about 18 degrees towards the horizon from the known, then you can go back to your books and your resources or Stellarium and figure it out. Okay, and I'd also suggest trying to learn one thing at a time. I'm going to refresh a bunch of stuff tonight. Then we'll go into some new material that's, you know, about 5 constellations that are new, and just try to practice one a night. Okay, I'd really like to acknowledge the importance of this wonderful cultural resource that we have. And I say cultural resource because there's some embedment in the culture of the West, and I guess I mean, you know, North American West, that having the great open expansive lands like say Big Sky, Montana, or the big basins of Nevada, these expansive landscapes are iconic of the West, but also just as iconic is the open big sky and this dark sky that we have the pleasure of having. So here's a light pollution map. This is light intensity. You can really see the divide there between East Coast and West Coast. Not that this is a literal, you know, divide in any way, but you could draw a line where there's sort of a much more extreme level of light pollution than on the other side. So over on the right-hand side, there's kind of a misshapen polygon here, smooth polygon. I live over here in Oregon, okay, right at the tip here along the Snake River. This is Ontario, Oregon, and this is the Owyhee region. This is the region that we do conservation advocacy for, and notice that it is in this very, very dark part of the polygon. And that is our interest here, right? Is we are incredibly overjoyed to just share the night sky when we're out there camping with people, but also through the digital media, which is really nice to have that. So out here, this is the Oregon, well, the Oregon portion of this would be known as the Oregon Dark Sky Network. And they, this is a network of astronomers, both your professional astronomers, as well as your backyard astronomers. And I'm not an astronomer, I'm a geologist. Okay, so I look at planets and stars and all these things through a really geologic lens, but I'm a stargazer. And that's what this is about. This is really about not being a physicist or an astronomer, but really having that any amateur can do that connection with the dark night sky. So thank goodness for the Oregon Outback Dark Sky Network that is banding a lot of us together that are passionate about this to become advocates for the idea of designations, dark sky designations, whether this is a dark sky reserve of a larger piece of land like in central Idaho, or whether this is just a state park that has gone through the process to get certified with the internationaldarkskies.org to become a dark sky park. And this is happening all over the West, And it seems like every week I hear of a new one. So we're hitting this just at the right time. And I really hope that you can take some time to go to some of these dark parks, these dark sky reserves, and just enjoy and bask in the darkness and in the tapestry of the sky. So a couple of crucial things here regarding these designations, these dark sky designations, is this isn't, you know, nobody's holding you against the law or anything. This isn't a law. It's a designation that if you don't meet the standards, then the designation goes away. So what are those standards? The standards, if you go back to the last map, is staying within the dark or even the slightly more grayish black. That's the acceptable range of this dark sky kind of reserves and preserves. So to prevent more light pollution from the urban areas from affecting areas further out into the dark area, it's really important that we begin to work with counties and municipalities, ranchers, myself, anybody, right? Anybody who will listen, to use sensible lighting. And so this image shows what we mean by sensible lighting. So an unshielded light over here on the left-hand side is just blasting off light up into space. Nobody needs it up there. Okay, the capped light, the partially shielded, and then the fully shielded, these are all design techniques to point the light down where we use it, on the ground, rather than over on the side of the building or up in the sky, where nobody needs to use the light. So let's not waste the energy and just blast it off into space. Let's be efficient energetically, as well as not polluting with light our natural dark skies. So again, this is no legal standing. Here's a couple of examples. Please visit the IDSW, International Dark Sky What would the W stand for? Probably says on their website, darkskynetwork.org or darksky.org. There's a plethora of information there. If I haven't given you enough about this, you'll find a lot more there to learn just how this is taking the globe, right? A lot of people around the globe are very serious about this. And I want to underscore that the number one here isn't for tourism. Certainly that helps. We're not saying, nobody's saying that this isn't going to have an effect on tourism or astrophotography or so on. I think that that's a crucial part of this, but really this is for a preservation, again, of a cultural resource that people for thousands of years, since time immemorial, have gazed up at this sky as a television, a pre-television, and made up stories and cultural legends that are close to people's hearts. Okay, close to their heritage. So let's keep a hold of this resource. It's everything we can do. So if you like this idea, if you like going out stargazing, we need your help. If you are in this network and you are in this area, whether this is in Ontario, Oregon, or whether this is in Burns, Oregon, there are county libraries and city libraries, Ontario Community Library, that are housing, if you look down on the right-hand corner of this slide, these dark sky kits, this whole kit that's set up for you to have a successful night out stargazing. Okay, and included in those, and this is what we need your help with, is a dark sky quality meter. It's really easy. Touch the red button, you put it up to the dark sky, and it beeps and it shows you the number. You write down that number, take, a dozen measurements or so we can average those together and get really good readings on just how dark it is out here, you guys. So to make maps like this, it's important to have those data. Okay. All right, let's move on to the stargazing portion tonight. Let's do a little bit of warm up by looking back to how we started all of this back in February. The image that's here is using Stellarium. This is it's an app. You can get it on your phone. I think it costs a couple of dollars. You can also get this on a desktop computer. It's very useful on the desktop computer. It has lots of bells and whistles, some of which you may use, some of which you may not. But I really like Stellarium obviously to utilize when I'm presenting to students or presenting to other people, or maybe somebody has a question about a star that they come to me with, and I can use Stellarium to take their information and find out what constellation they're talking about. So it's a resource. If you have the ability to download it for free, it's open software on your PC, then do so and play around with it. And this can improve your stargazing a lot. Then there's also, I mentioned the app. There's also several iPhone versions, and there's been other really good suggestions on other types of apps that can be used, and try them all out. Okay, I don't know the pros and cons of all of them, really. I know that I like Stellarium. Oh, and call me stuck in my ways, but Stellarium being an open free software, and it's actually Linux. You can use it on Linux too, which is kind of rare these days. It's really a good program. And when you're out stargazing, you can turn it on red mode. You can touch the button to make the bright white light that's blinding you when you're outside stargazing. You don't want that. You don't want to be blinded by the white light. You can turn on the red mode. And I think that's pretty common for most of them. Okay. Another neat function, of course, of Stellarium that you've probably learned from some other program is you can do this in real time. You can actually spin your phone around and it can label the sky for you. Okay. Now, that's great. These things are at our fingertips. We live in this space age where we have all this stuff at our fingertips. But I can't tell you how many times I've been out, camping with somebody, which the app still, it still works, where somebody's like, I want to know what star that is. And then they use this, and then they do this, and they figure it out, and then they move on. Okay. As you well know, there's every learner has a seeking behind that. So instead of training yourself to always reliably find the answers all the time and then not actually learn it or remember it, push yourself to try naked eye stargazing. Look at the resources while you're in your house, think about it, and then go outside and do these things. So this is where we started in February, looking at the winter circle. We were looking towards the south. If you look up about 35 degrees, you will see the trio of stars known as Orion's belt. Okay, so we covered Orion's belt, his shoulder, Betelgeuse, his knee, Rigel, and then the circle that's here between all these really bright stars. So you can see the Milky Way is back here in Stellarium. They do a really good job of illustrating that. Okay, so all these bright stars are right along the Milky Way, which you might expect, right? Because right along the Milky Way is the thickest portion of all the light and gases along our spiral galaxy, where if you're looking out to either direction, there's fewer stars out there. So this winter circle goes from Sirius, Rigel, up here to Aldebaran, which is part of the Taurus constellation, Capella, down here to the twin stars, Castor and Pollux, Procyon, and then back to Sirius. Okay, so we went through all of those and we went through some of the individual star names. And this is kind of how we ended that, was to leave you with a little bit of homework so you could practice just the circle, just making it into just a plain image, I think can really help to set that into your head. Okay, then in March, we turned from looking south and we turned around to bring our attention to the north. And very interestingly, in the north, you've probably heard of the North Star. The North Star, it's not straight above our head, and it's not the brightest star in the sky. It's the North Star because literally our planet, okay, it's at a slight angle. It spins along that axis. And so Polaris is the star that sits right above, not the geographic axis of the Earth, okay, but pretty close around the spin of 23.5 degrees. So Polaris, it turns out, being the pole star, and if you're into mathematics, you know Euler poles, where everything spins around the Euler pole. So Polaris is essentially a fixed star, and the whole sky spins around it. So finding the North Star not only is kind of an important long lost skill. If you go around and ask people, you know, there's maybe 1 out of 15 people who are like, yeah, I know how to find the North Star. The way to find the North Star, as we illuminated, is to find the Big Dipper. Now, the Big Dipper, kind of like Orion, is a lot more obvious. And then you find the end of the cup of the dipper. So here's the handle. There's the basin, is what I call it. And then there's the end of the cup. Okay, you find the end of the cup, line up those 2 stars, Marek and Dubhe, and extend that line pretty much straight, and you'll come to a star of equal brightness to Marek and Dubhe, about equal brightness. And this is about 24 degrees from Dubhe to Polaris, about 24 degrees. So that would be, you know, one of the hang loose and about one of those, and you'll be there. Okay, and now that you've found Polaris, okay, it's pretty easy to find. Now, remind yourself that everything spins around Polaris. So if you go out, say in March, this is the configuration that you would see, but tonight, everything has spun around. So we're going to see a different northern arrangement of the constellations. That's why we're going to look back north tonight. Okay, now if you keep going through the pole star and you go to the other side, it looks like my arrow is obscuring this a little bit. There's a W shape right here. Well, or I guess it's an M. No, it's a W. No, it's an M. Okay, it doesn't really matter because again, it spins throughout the night sky. So sometimes it's a W down here, and then sometimes it's up above Polaris and it's an M shape. Okay, but that classic double shape of Cassiopeia, or the Vein Queen. So that week we learned Ursa Major, we learned Cassiopeia and Polaris. Then last month we focused on the ecliptic path of the sun as it moves through the day sky. Well, the day sky is the same as the night sky. It's just that the sun is out. Okay, so it's the same sky. And if you imagine the path that the sun takes during the winter, okay, that would be the ecliptic during the summer, or vice versa. So the constellations, the star constellations that fall along the ecliptic, or in other words, the sun passes in front of those constellations once during the year, okay, because the sun moves a couple of degrees, right? It moves a degree or so each day, and it'll pass through each of these constellations for some amount of time, depending on how big the constellation is. Some of them are real big, like Virgo. Virgo is a 45-day long constellation. That means the sun spends 45 days in that constellation. Now, Scorpio, on the other hand, is a pretty tight constellation. Most of it's up here, but the sun passes through a little corner of the constellation. It's only there for, I think, 10 days. It might be 9 days. So my point here is kind of double-sided, is that the constellations that you know as the zodiac are real, and the sun does pass through them. But the timing, if you were to look up your horoscope stuff, that's set into 30-day increments, and that's not reality, you guys. The reality is the sun doesn't spend just 30 days in each one of those star signs, okay? And by the way, there's 13 of them in astronomy. Yes, we add a 13th because the sun, as I said, only goes through a corner of Scorpio, and it actually heads through a different constellation called Ophiuchus. Okay, and also all the other celestial bodies pass along about the same area as the ecliptic. Mars, Mercury, Moon, they all pass right along generally the same path. And here along the ecliptic, you can actually see this, that the Moon and Mars are right there along that ecliptic I drew. Okay, here's what I left everyone with the zodiacal constellations, something to practice with. So we looked at, from the winter circle looking south, we already knew a couple of these things, Taurus and Gemini, the Gemini twins, right? Then also looking at Cancer, the crab, and Leo, the lion. Leo is very easy to find with this backwards question mark. So if you look to the southwest tonight, you'll probably see Leo really bright. And then Virgo was just coming up over the southeastern sky when we talked about this. But at 10 o'clock tonight, it's just about dead south. Okay, and you'll see the star Spica in Virgo. Okay, so that's all of our review material. I wanted to now jump into a new kind of perspective of the sky. And so we're going to take some time to jump through a couple of different constellations. They don't quite have the theme that some of our previous weeks had, right? Because we're building onto the story. So we're looking to the north. I have this set at about 10 p.m. tonight, and look at that. It's still light out over there. But as I mentioned, I like to start my stargazing as the sun is going down over the horizon. There's still a little bit of, dusk out. So that allows the stars that are the brightest to start to pop. And immediately as the sun starts to go down, if you look over there in the northwest, you're going to see this real bright star. That bright star is Capella. That's Capella of the winter circle. That when we saw Capella, she was way over here in the winter circle, and Capella was almost all the way up at the zenith, or straight overhead. And now over the season, it's come down along the horizon, passed over the west, and is now setting a little bit north of west. So just to orient you, you already know this part of the sky, you guys. This is Capella. Over here are the twin stars of Gemini, Castor, and Pollux. And so if we were to keep that going, you would imagine Sirius would be over here somewhere, right? So we've already oriented you, but I want you to look around the slide to see if there's anything else that you can use to orient you that you're looking north. Okay, just look around there for a second, take your time. We've already looked in the north before, and we've used that time to find Polaris, the pole star. And of course, I gave you a really good method to find the pole star, right? Which is finding the Big Dipper, going from the end of the tail or the handle, passing the basin and finding the end of the cup. And then using the end of the cup, the pointer stars, to point down to Polaris. Now let me show you with my mouse here. Big Dipper is way up here. It's upside down, you guys. It's way up here, upside down. So when we first saw Big Dipper, it was over here during our class. And now that has shifted a quarter of the way around the sky. Well, that makes sense. Okay, we have gone about a full quarter through the stargazing process. And look at that, that's almost a full 90 degrees from where it was at before, or a quarter of 360. Okay, so there's Big Dipper, there's Merak, there's Dupe. Hi Merak, hi Dupe. And if you line them up, they go down there to Polaris. Okay, so everything's gonna spin around Polaris. Now, if you pass through Polaris, go down towards the horizon, you get to the W of Cassiopeia. Stuff you know already, So there's the outline of the bear. I know I didn't show that in the previous slide, but we did talk about that Big Dipper is just an asterism. It's not a constellation, it's just a part of a constellation or an asterism. So this is the full part of that. It's known as Ursa Major, or the Big Bear. So there's the body of the bear and the tail of the bear. Yes, because in these legends, bears have big, long tails. Okay, so there's the feet, the legs of the bear. I didn't annotate it as perfect as I did last time. And there's the ears. I really like the ear stars of the bear. I like to look up at those and think of looking at bear's ears. Okay, like Bear's Ears National Monument. Now, if that's the Big Bear, I'm sure you've heard that there's also a Little Bear, or Ursa Minor. Okay, before I whizzed through these, I did one of the last stargazing events, I totally glazed over one of these type of details, that there's a meteor shower out there, okay, which is really, really cool. This is great stargazing stuff, but I just get worried about throwing too much out there. So Stellarium illustrates these really well, but it's just an illustration, right? It's not going to look like that. You'll need some binoculars to see this well. But if you put some binoculars up there in that area of the sky, you'll see a lot of shooting stars or meteor shower. Now, you can also see this with your naked eye starting about tonight through the next month, and that peaks out at around the June 9th. So you can see them with your naked eye and sit on the lawn out in your yard or camping and probably see some really cool shooting stars. Especially out there in your natural dark night skies. So Tau Herculitis, okay, those funny, peculiar words. I always read them and never say them out loud. So just to acknowledge that you can also see one of these smaller objects that's not a constellation or a planet. Oh my, what happened there? Okay. This now, if we fast forward the time a little bit, I went forward about a half an hour just to let it be a little bit darker outside. So there's the Big Bear. And I already annotated here. I meant that to slide a little bit differently, but we're looking in this area towards Polaris. There's Polaris. And here's the Little Bear, you guys. That's the Little Bear. That's the body of the bear. It kind of is a box. There's a little paw. So this star is meant to be the kind of the heart star of the bear. And then you have the paw star. And then of course the star at the end of the tail back there, because again, bears have tails. So Big Bear has a tail, Little Bear has a tail. Well, that doesn't look like much of a bear, but if I put the illustration from Stellarium on there, it does look like a cute little bear. Okay, I just love Ursa Major, cute little bear. So now, not only do we know Polaris and the North Star, but now we're starting to fill in some of the areas between Cassiopeia and Big Dipper. So if we go ahead, draw yourself down to Cassiopeia, but I want to show you something else on the way down there. If you look, in this case, it would be a little bit to the east. Okay, remember the sky switches, so we can't always give left and rights, right? But in this case, a little bit east from the W, you can make out this box feature that's here. A couple of the stars aren't perfect. They don't make the box perfectly and they're spread out and they're a little dimmer, but if you squint your eyes, you can make out a nice shaped box here. Okay, there's the box. And then that box is kind of wearing a hat, a triangle pointy hat. Or you could kind of think about it as looking like a house. You know, when you were a third grader, or maybe kindergartner, you were drawing a house with a box and a triangle. This is Cassiopeia's husband. Hey, I haven't told you any about the story of Cassiopeia, but you should look that up. Cassiopeia is not a good story. She was not a very good person. And her husband, Cepheus, stood next to her while doing his atrocities. So the king and the queen are not well honored, if you will, in Greek mythology. And so part of the story is to get what they had coming to them, they have to be upside down for half of the year. So, or for half of the night, right? I always think that's kind of funny. But so here's Cepheus in annotated. And then the star up here at his shoulder is called Alderamin. Alderamin, okay? All right, let's move on a little bit. Now, keeping to the east, there's a very obvious bright star out here that's coming up in the northeast. This one you can maybe even see through the clouds. It's that bright. Okay, as the clouds break up a little bit, you might be able to get a glimpse of this. This bright star out here, I'll give you the constellation name, but really it's all about the star, because that's really the only major thing in this constellation. Big bright star is the star Vega. Oh yeah, Vega, I've heard of that star, right? You're probably thinking that. Vega is a fairly popular star in sci-fi pop culture. The movie Contact from 1994, Jodie Foster, this was the star that was sending the pulses. This was the star that she went to in the space contraption and all of that kind of stuff, whether that was just in her mind or reality. I never know, I get confused. The movie's really cool. But Vega is culturally a very important star. A lot of people have, cultures all over the world they can see Vega in the Northern Hemisphere, have stories about Vega. Here's another cool fun fact. Vega was the North Star, was the North Star about 8,000 years ago. So our pole, this angle that we sit at, 23.5 degrees, isn't stable through time. Okay, the Earth actually tilts between about 22.5 degrees all the way to 25 degrees. Okay, I mean, not all in one day, you guys. No, come on. It's about a 24,000 year cycle. So starting from 12,000 years later, it's at 25, and then all the way back up to 22, another 12,000 years. So this 24,000 year cycle has it that the North Star switches between Polaris and Vega, back and forth and back and forth. Isn't that neat? I like that idea. So there you have it, Vega. Okay, now let's keep going. Oh yes, the constellation's name is Lyra, like like a harpsichord, right? And I'm not sure how the stars stitch together to make the Lyra, but I guess they do. Vega's the important thing. Now, if you go about 10 degrees, and I would say towards the Big Dipper, notice that the Big Dipper's way up here. So that gives you a lot of space to work with. But if you go straight towards Dubhe, about 10 degrees away from Lyra, look at these things. Oh, look at that. These look like creepy eyes to me. Maybe I'm just making things up, but do you see Stellarium annotates the color of the stars as well? They do have a slightly orange to reddish hue to them. And just the way that they're looking at me, they look like creepy eyes. Okay, I'm sort of leading you into something, but they make a triangle right here, kind of have these creepy eyes. So I'm going to draw a triangle on there, annotate those creepy triangle eyes. And the top one in this case is Rostaban, and the bottom one, Eltanon. Okay, I think that's probably said different. I've always said it, Eltanon. Rostaban and Altanon are the two eyes of this constellation. So that's why I was calling them creepy eyes, but I think they look like that anyway. Of this constellation that snakes all the way around, almost all the way up to Big Dipper. So let me reverse that and take that off. Do you see how faint these stars are that are drawn together here? I mean, you know, we're really stitching together stars that are very faint. You know, and this isn't modern day astronomers that are doing this. This is all coming from the ancient Roman Greco legends and star myths, right? That they did all this stuff. And this is just the Western perspective, right? There's hundreds of other cultures that have stories and constellations about the night sky. And I think as we continue to go through our stargazing monthly activities, we're going to work into some of those, you guys. We're going to come back to talk about Big Dipper's relationship to the Lakota legend of Devil's Tower. So that'll come up in a couple of months. All right, let's go back to this snaky thing. Okay, it's a snaky thing. That is the constellation Draco the Dragon. And it kind of wraps around the little bear in here. So if you imagine little bear, nice, cute little bear, it's not being mean to bear. It's not trying to constrict the bear. I feel like it's a protector. Okay, Draco the Dragon is protecting little bear. Okay, there's an image from Stellarium of Draco the Dragon, really robust, kind of European looking dragon with wrapping around the little bear. So I feel like it's protecting little bear with those creepy eyes, okay, right there. Good. Now I'm going to shift the night sky just a little bit more. We're going to go back another half an hour to 10:30. And now I want you to, well, I'm going to do this in Stellarium, but we're going to shift from looking straight to the north, okay, to straight to the northeast. Okay, so from north to east is exactly 90 degrees. Exactly 90 degrees. And you're going to cut that in half. So that's about 45 degrees east of north. Okay, and that's known as azimuth directions, 45 degrees east of north. And in this area in the sky at about 10:30, so here's what that looks like. You've reoriented yourself. Dipper's way up here. Okay, it looks like I cut off Marek, Polaris, Cassiopeia, Dorms or whatever this is, I don't know, and Vega. Okay, so you're oriented in space. There's the creepy eyes. I'd like to draw your attention to what's coming up above the horizon here. And this is a constellation we'll talk about a couple more times as we go through the summer. Because this is one of the coolest, I feel, well, okay, it's all cool to me. I'm going to say that about everything. It's all cool. But this particular constellation, being able to see it move through the summer sky just brings back really neat memories throughout the summer. And every time that I get to see it come up in spring again, it's like, oh, it's field season. It's time to go outside. So I'll draw some lines here. Okay, let me reverse those. I'm putting this bright star, these stars that are almost in a row, and then these stars that are almost in a row, and kind of making a cross shape out of those, right? Just for lack of a better term to call that, it's a cross shape. I mean, it's on its side, obviously. And that shape encouraged the ancients in several different cultures, interestingly, not just the Western Greco-Roman perspective, but several cultures to look at that and go, oh, I know what that is. That's a goose or a swan or some type of long wingspan waterfowl as they fly overhead, right? Particularly in the spring, we still have a lot of the birds still moving around, flying overhead with that classic shape of a goose or a swan. So the constellation is actually called the Swan, Cygnus the Swan, and the star at the tail feather over here is called Deneb. And so just remembering one star from each constellation is good. It kind of teases your brain a little bit because you're trying to remember the constellation and the star. One or the other is just fine. Okay, but here's the goose flying overhead. So I'm just gonna, there's the cross. I'm gonna place that goose over the constellation. Now, what I want to remind you is that here's Polaris, and everything spins counterclockwise around Polaris, right? So that means that this goose is also going to spin counterclockwise in this huge rotation around Polaris. So it really ends up that this goose ends up flying overhead. Deneb, I think of it as just Deneb or Cygnus. It takes off from low on the horizon right here about the end of May, and it soars all the way through the night. You'll see this if you stay up till 4 in the morning again. It'll soar all the way through the sky and land over here where Capella is going down in the northwest. You can see it all in one night. Or every night that you stargaze throughout the summer season, you'll see the goose flying over you a little bit further. So cool, so cool. All right, now you got time for one more? You got time for one more? Come on, you can handle another one. Let's get one more. If you go above Vega, so I'm here at Vega. You already saw where I drew the box. If you go above Vega, okay, this space is where we're headed. This space in here. Oh, the Tau Herculinids. Yeah, oh, Herculinids, huh? So the naming convention of meteor showers is they are named after the constellation from which they emanate. So obviously the stars are like way back there. And these meteors or asteroids at first are coming into the atmosphere and they're burning up in the atmosphere and they give off all the bright light. So so those rocks are like, you know, maybe 55 kilometers above our head. They're not very far, but those stars are like 55 light years away. So there's clearly some distance, but because of that background, like a tapestry, we name the meteor shower after the constellation that's behind it. So it turns out this is named after Hercules, right? Hercules, it's a constellation, not just a cool guy or a cool story, right? And here is the base of Hercules, another box, okay? Men tend to have a kind of boxy frame, right? With the wider shoulders, about the same as the hips. Maybe some of these constellations, they'll like Orion, they narrow it up a little bit at the hips. But you see that the ancients, the Greco-Roman world, they were just one-track mind. Everything is either a male or female or an animal for the most part. And if this had a square type of structure, then they usually made a male out of it. And now here's the rest of Hercules. Get this. What? How does that make any sense? It looks like an octopus, like a tree octopus. Okay, but that is in fact the arms and legs of Hercules. So he's kind of on his side. So you got to kind of tilt your head. And one of these arms is kind of down here holding something, and this leg is raised. And the other leg is back, and the other arm's way up here. So he looks like, wait, am I doing yoga again today? No. He kind of looks like he's doing something peculiar in the sky. This is no Orion that's just sort of stoically standing there. Okay. Hercules is busy. If you know about any of the Herculean legends and all the things, he was a busy person, at least in legend. So in the sky, he's literally fighting the Hydra, right? From the labors of Hercules. He's in the sky wrestling with that Hydra. So the legend of this, fighting the Hydra comes from, I would imagine that the ancients were looking at this. They're like, oh, that kind of looks like a person, but they must be really working hard because their arms are in the air. And then they made up this story, of course, about Hercules and the Hydra. Okay, that's how I like to think about it anyway. So there's Hercules for you. And right there at the heel of Hercules is where you'll see the shooting stars emanating from. Okay, so our process here was to find the Big Dipper. That was the first thing we used as the roadmap, you guys. Find the Big Dipper, find Polaris. Then we talked about Little Dipper. Then we led you down to Cassiopeia to find her husband Cepheus, over to the Bright Star because that was an obvious transition. Looking at Draco wrapping around Little Bear. And then also the cross shape of the swan or the goose that's flying overhead. And then if you look above Vega, you'll find Hercules. Okay, so that was our process. Our roadmap was to just map these things around. And we were looking to the north in the spring season. It's a 50% moon tonight. And we always remind ourselves of the hand. Did you see how useful that was to measure the distance between Vega and the creepy eyes? Okay. Go ahead and use them. So That's what I have for tonight. We're about at the top of the half an hour, and June 16th is the next date. We're going to do this again. Watch out on Eventbrite or however you follow Friends of the Owyhee. And if you don't follow us, please do. This is our main virtual kind of event, but we do, a lot of in-person events, camping trips, day hikes, yoga hikes. That's the second time I got to say yoga. Okay. We try to do as much as we can to engage as many people out in the landscape in the Owyhee, thinking about conservation of natural resources and natural dark night skies as we can. So please, visit us on Facebook or visit the website to see what kind of stuff we're up to. But let's take some Q&A. So I think I touched the button that was telling everybody to mute. So let me turn that off. Okay. I think if you would like to unmute and ask a question or a comment or a concern, then by all means. Yes, Lori, looks like you have a question.
Hey, Sammy, have you gone out and measured the dark sky quality yet with that kit, or do you know if anybody is using it in Ontario?
Yes, good question. We do have, I bought the college one, or well, the college bought it for itself, but I had to buy it. And then we have one in-house in Friends of the Owyhee, and then there's 2 coming to our local library. So we've gotten a chance to use ours. I know that Tim tries to use his every chance he gets, right? It's a really kind of neat tool. And my readings, I want to say my highest reading was 21.7. 21.7.
That's good. I was wondering what a high quality reading is. Out at where I live, I've been getting, for average readings, 21.69, 21.89. And I've been meaning to take it out on the desert, either the Catlow or out on Warm Springs to check there. It should be even better there. I was wondering what type of readings we should be getting.
Yeah, that's good to know. I'm so glad you asked, because it helps us calibrate that a little bit. So, and I hope you join the call tomorrow, Lori. We can probably.
Yes, I'm committed to it. I'll see if I can make it. Schedule here might be crazy, but I'm hoping to be on that. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Daniel has a question that she typed in the chat. I get names confused. I'm really sorry. Will the presentation be able to be viewed again? Yes, it has been recorded. I'm still recording, but I'll stop that recording soon and download it, and we'll put it on YouTube. So please visit our all the participants. We always email the participants afterwards. I'll give you the worksheet, your homework that I like to give. I'll give you the presentation slides, and you'll have a video to accompany that. So anything that you need, I'm all about learning. The more resources that you can have, the more times you can see it to make sure that you feel good about stargazing, the better. So thank you for asking. That was a really good question. Total thumbs up. So are there any other burning questions out there, folks?
That's a new raised hand from me, Sammy.
Oh, that's a second raised hand? Yeah.
Yeah. So are the Friends of Owyhee doing anything for dark sky observation in particular this summer?
We are not specifically, other than getting our dark sky quality meter out there as much as we can, and really starting to take the readings. Then, of course, the second part of that is working through the community library to see if we can get people to take those kits out. But other than that kind of advocacy work, we're not doing much else. I know that we do have some interest of putting out some stable meters that are out there and working with the Outback network to get more of those important data. But other than some of our advocacy, we're not doing any other data collection.
Okay, and I think tomorrow in that meeting with Bob related to dark sky Outback, I'm hoping that he's hoping to provide some kind of an orientation or an online program for anyone interested related to dark sky program that he would offer through Zoom, I believe.
Awesome.
So,
yes. Yes, I've had Bob in to talk to the local Kiwanis Club of Ontario, and he
Yes.
does have a really good bank of slides that's meant to be introductory for anybody to learn about dark skies.
Right, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like there's something else in the chat here. Oh, yes, you're very welcome, Lori. Good. Well, Gina, Arthel, Joe, if you guys don't have any questions, feel free to email me. I'm very accessible on the website. Again, you'll get a follow-up with all the information from this, but you know, if you just want to connect over just over stars, you know, to talk about some stargazing, a favorite camping and stargazing trip, what some of your interests are, don't be bashful. I clearly am full of words. I like to converse, and I'd like to get to know you better around this subject. Whether this is around the Owyhee dark night skies, Nevada, there's dark skies that we can be advocates of everywhere. Well, very good. Well, thank you all for coming, folks, and I hope to see you next month. Same time of the month and same time of the day, and I'll probably be in the same place. Okay, well, until then, keep your eyes up and enjoy the night skies. Don't stay up too late, though. Can make for a sleepy day. All right, have a great day, folks. I'll see you next time.